Hey, so today we're going to look at Toric, and this is going to be a introduction to Toric. So we'll look at what this is, and then we'll actually dive into it. So I think this is pretty exciting. They were nice enough to give me a license to the tool, so I'm able to do these videos and share the stuff that I create with you guys. So I think this is pretty exciting. The tool is really amazing, and so hopefully you guys find this insightful or interesting. But let's get into it. So this is going to be a short, just PowerPoint, and then we'll actually dive into the tool and look at it. But essentially, what we're going to do is just talk a bit about what Toric is before jumping directly into it, and then we're going to get data into Toric. So uh, that'll be Revit Navisworks data, and so I'll show you how to do that. And then data flow, we'll talk a bit about that. Data app, and then we'll publish the app. So I guess the big three things is like getting the data into it, creating your data flow, and then creating your data app, which essentially is a dashboard. When we get in there, it'll make more sense when you visually see that. But here's the interface when you're on the site and you're looking at the tool. So to the left, you've got your overview. This was handy because when I originally got into this tool without knowing anything, this was kind of confusing, this overview area. But this actually breaks down what you're doing in your data flow and then in your app as well. So you can see data flow and then data app. It essentially gives you a tree like view of all of the stuff that you're doing in your data flow and your data app, and then allows you to look into that further and see what data may be getting processed and just kind of step through it that way. So that part was confusing at first, and I do, when we get in there, I want to show you some examples. Some of it's still just the way that it's ordered may still be confusing, but I'll show you guys that when we jump into the tool. Data flow in this example is very simple, but the data flow is just you've got nodes and you plug nodes into other nodes, and I don't know if they use that terminology to describe these, but just like in Dynamo, you've got your nodes, except for in this example, instead of being horizontal, horizontally being built in Dynamo, or typically in Dynamo you would be, and here it's just vertically. So we'll take a look at that as well, and then this is your data app. Essentially, dashboard. That's the way that I think of this every time I think of data app or when I mess around with this. So this view here, so you can see this node here is what this is viewing. So it's connected to that node, and then that's what's being shown in the dashboard. This is what you would share to your end users or to your project team members to be able to view the information that you translate or you clean up and prep for dashes. So this is what they would actually see. And then over to the right of that, this is the settings panel, and this can be closed or open depending on what you're doing. But anyways, that's kind of the breakdown. Again, it'll make more sense when we get into that. So what is Toric? Looks like I forgot to take that subtitle out, but we'll leave it. So this is just from their actual website, which I definitely recommend checking out. You'll find the link below if you want to learn more. But all the data, none of the coding. So it's a low code platform. I think of it like Power BI. Or like if you've been on this channel for a while, there's like the FME tool, if I remember correctly. There's the Nime platform. Those are low code environments, but those address particular issues with like in Nime's case with data analytics and machine learning, and is more focused in the data world, whereas Toric is more focused in AEC. and their solution integrates really well with Revit, with Navisworks, and a number of other tools. Whereas like Nime, you'd have to build all those connectors into it, and then their tools aren't as intuitive, I would say, as Toric. The flow and just the logic of it is very simple, and that's the idea. Kind of just a low barrier tool to really start to leverage data within a firm to really open up the doors for almost anybody to get involved with it. So incredibly powerful. But that's kind of how they're developing this. They want it to be easy for people to get into it and really leverage their information. But if you want to learn more, check out below. Obviously, this link here isn't helpful, but you can see there if I hover over it. It's just the toric.com website. So you'll find the link below as well. So get data into Toric. We're not going to, this PowerPoint isn't going to be me showing you snippets. We'll actually jump into these tools, but this is what it looks like. So here's Navisworks, and then there's a Toric add-in that you can just click on, and then the interface looks like this. This interface here, what you're seeing, is actually for the Revit portion of it. We'll look at both of them, but in Navisworks, you're just pushing the Clash data up into Toric. And then also if you want the geometry data as well. So here's the dashboards. I've created one called Navisworks Overview. There's two that I created from a template, so we'll look at those. And then there's going to be a fourth one which we'll create inside of the actual application. So we'll jump into Toric and create it. Just a very basic one that I'll share with you as well. But all of these, you can access these. I found it to be, they work really well in Google or in Chrome, also in Edge. I tried it in the Brave search engine, and it ended up not working very well. But anyways, if you want to check these out, here they are, and again, they'll be posted below. And then if you want to check out the Discord channel, there's a link, obviously. There's a banner with the link also below in the description, and then right here. So that's where you can discuss tools like Toric. If you have other ideas, there's a Discord channel in there for ideas for YouTube. Let me know, because I would love to know what ideas you have, because there's just so much data in this tool and so many possibilities. I would love to know if there's things that you would find valuable in a tool like this, or if there's data that you would like to know more about. Let me know, and a Discord is a good spot to kind of post that stuff. So, okay, let's jump into it. So I've got Navisworks open, and I'm not going to publish data from Navisworks or Revit just because I've already published it, but I'm going to walk through the process. So I've got this Autodesk Navis Manage 2022 file open. It's an NWF file started from a template that I have, and it has a bunch of preset Clash tests in it, and it has 5 different models, so arch, electrical, and then your HVAC, plumbing, and struct. I wasn't strict on that. I just kind of broke them out real, just quickly. So the MEPs aren't perfect, but for this example, they'll work out. Now, something to point out is when I clicked on the Toric button, sometimes it looks like it is going to make me sign in. So I'm going to sign in real quick. Oh, it looks like it autos. Okay, never mind. So something to point out is that you'll see that it's grayed out for the ones that don't have any Clash test, obviously. So you don't want to push that data up there. And then it's not grayed out. It's open for the ones that that you would like to push the data up into Toric. The issue that I found is that in most cases, I'd want to publish all information into Toric. as a BIM manager, I would, managing projects, that's typically the method I would do. I used BIM Beats for this particular kind of tracking, or at least with Navisworks, and that's kind of in real time. And so the issue I ran into was that if I tried to push more, it seemed to error out. Now, that's obviously going to be something that they resolve or make better, optimize in some way, make it more just a quicker. But the workflow I had to do was essentially just remove and only just push up one at a time, which causes another issue when we jump into Toric because it's separated by version. So every time I would upload a version, it wouldn't overwrite, but it would, now the next version is version 4, and then my Arch versus HVAC is in version 3, and so now I have to have multiple nodes showing that data. So part of this is there may be better or more effective ways that I'm not aware of yet, but these are some of the issues I noticed. And I think the information's super valuable, and I think this will be resolved. It may also have something to do with my NWFs, but just a heads up, if you dive into this, notice some issues with Navisworks, just keep that in mind. You may have to play around with this, try to only push a few at a time, or one, or and just see what happens. Because for me, it would get to the end and then just not do anything. It would push all the data, stop at the last one, and then just crash. So I just had to push one at a time. So anyways, when we get into Toric, you'll see that data, the clash data, and if you're familiar with my videos, I've shown this data before with Python, with BIM Beats, and it's no different than that. It's just tracking our clash data so that we can make decisions with it, and then allowing us, to visualize it. So, all right, so that's Toric and Navisworks. Here's the same model, except, well, actually, this is the architectural model. So one of those NWC models. And here we've got another Toric button, and looks like it wants me to update. I'll do that later. Let's see if I've got to sign in or if it'll auto do it again. So looks like I had to sign in, so that's good. Now Revit's Toric is a little bit different. Here it's asking us what elements we want to push up into Toric, and then we can drill down further into the categories and really figure out what it is that we want to push up there, or further down into the disciplines, and then select the categories we want. And so for now, we'll just leave all of them checked. And then something to keep in mind is if you want the geometry, the 3D geometry, that's here. And then this is the project I'm using. So Toric Introduction, you can see this test project from another sample Autodesk project. Autodesk model is up there. And then there's just one called My Drafts. So I'm going to choose this Toric Introduction one. And then here's the data source. And then that's it. So we can just go ahead and push the data. There's also schedule data you can pull into it. I haven't tested this out or seen how this works yet. I would imagine it's just bringing the data into some table-like format where you can visualize the same data you would in a schedule, but now in Toric. And then obviously you could use their data manipulation tools to do further things with it. So let's just, we'll go ahead and just send the data just so that you guys can see how that works. So it'll kind of just process. It doesn't seem to take too long, but obviously If you have a much larger model, it may take longer. And I mean, if you are sending all data up into Toric, but maybe you're more selective and you only want to send up something, so obviously it'll be faster. Or if you don't need the 3D geometry, you can, exclude that, and it'll go faster as well. But anyways, time varies depending on what you're doing. All right, so our model's been pushed up there. Now let's jump into Toric and check it out. So this is their site, worth checking out. Again, you'll find it in the description below. But they do have a lot of helpful videos, probably more helpful than mine. So worth checking out. And then more information just about the product. All right, so I've got our projects. Here's the 3 of them that you saw in the Toric app inside of Revit, or the plugin. So we're going to click on this Toric introduction, and then in here we've got our data flows all wrapped up, and then we have our sources. So to start it off, here's the 2 that I created from a template, which I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then here's the Navisworks overview one I just want to show you guys. And then the basic data flow, which we'll create together. We'll look at a 3D view, and then we'll look at we'll just look at a table view of information. So to jump into it, here's the Navisworks view that I set up. So few things that were a bit confusing was that when the clash tests get pushed into Toric, they read out as this. So kind of confusing. And the issue that I referred to or mentioned earlier was that version 3, I pushed HVAC versus Arch, and then version 4 was struck versus HVAC. So that's why I had to have 2 different sources, and then I had to join that data together to then visualize that information. So something to keep in mind with Navisworks. Now, obviously, if you can push all the data up into Toric, then you can easily visualize it with only one data flow. But having a whole bunch of sources isn't really a consistent workflow, and is not what I think they're after anyway. So to start off, and when we get into the basic workflow, I'll actually show you how to build it. So a lot of this will be it'll make more sense when you see that on top of this. So, but this is the flow. So you start with your sources. That's what these are, and you can see over to the left are sources, and then if we expand that, that's the information behind it. I think this is helpful knowing what this is, that it's showing us the just like the breakdown of in a tree version of the data flow. But if you really wanted to see the data, so in this case this is our source, what we can click on is the data inspector, and this will actually show us all of the data behind this node. And then down here, if we click on the count, we can see that there's 536 total rows in that table. Over here we can see there's 1300, and then if we combine those, we can see there's 1800. Over here I append the 2 different versions, version 4 and version 3. So now we have the struck versus HVAC. Scroll down really far, we can see Arch versus HVAC. So we have both tables combined into one, and then down here we can break out just the clash test name, so that in our overview or our actual dashboard we can just visualize the count or the total by those 2 or by the different values inside a clash test name. So in this case there's only 2 different ones, and then we can see the totals of them in a nice little bar chart. So and then, so this is the data flow. So the first part, like in the PowerPoint, is getting the data into Toric. And so these are our sources. And then when the data's there, you can drag your data onto a data flow canvas. And then from there, whatever your goal is, you can start to manipulate or create new data, and then just continue creating a flow and then building your data app. In this case, this is a Navisworks one, and this shows us our model, gives us our max count, it gives us a nice little table to view everything in. And the workflow that I've always had with Navisworks or any of these kind of data type dashboards that show us that information, is to use it as a project management resource, just to help, like, at a high level, know where everything is at, so that when you're in your weekly meeting or whatever that is, you can sit down and say, hey, looks like we're heading in the right direction to achieve our goals, or we're not. But it's just a quick view. And then some other examples of that is like the BIMbeats Navisworks dashboard. So here is that same model, and it can quickly show us what the new and active clashes are, and then compare all of our different clashes across all the different clash tests, and then a timeline to visualize that information. And then over here is a high overview of that same information, but across, or not the same information, but a more high overview of just the company usage of it. So just like in BIMbeats, that's the way that I would use Navisworks data. Just like I would, try to use it with Toric, is create a high level dashboard that teams could use to gauge where they're at. As for resolving and dealing with clashes, I think Model Coordinate has a good workflow for that. And then also, if you have integrations with Navis to Revit, those are really great workflows as well, to actually resolving clashes at a individual level. And then this is more of a PM tool, just to keep track of everything. That's the way that I see this. So this is a dashboard that you have access to. So feel free to check this out, play around with it. You can change the versions here, which this isn't like super great, because if you change the version, now we have two version 4s linking up together. But anyways, it's something that you can mess around with, see, just to see how it works. This is a cool viewer, and here's our max count. Down here you can check, stuff. It should show up in this viewer, but it's not for me. I'm not seeing anything when I check anything. But anyways, feel free to check that. That'll be below. Something else I want to point out is, if we pull this over a little bit, you'll see this light blue line. So these lines, if we select on the view, are where the data is coming from. So any of these dashes or any of these visualizations could be coming from any one of these nodes on this data flow canvas. And so this will tell you exactly where that's coming from. So here's the versions. It's coming from this source node here, and then here it's coming from this source node, and then if we come down here, we can see it's coming from this addition node that's combining the two counts. And then you can see here, this is coming from this this append node. So anyways, that's that. And then when we create it, you'll see kind of how that how we connect into that. But it's just this, really. It's just we pull it over, we drag it, and then that's it. It makes the connections. So let's jump back here. We'll go to our projects, Toric, and there's the Navis overview one. Here's a architecture model model one from it. So I created this one from a template, and I just wanted to see how easy it was to do that. So we won't talk too much about what the data flow is, but you can see they can get kind of complicated. This is one example, so there's a lot of stuff happening in that one. But I wanted to see, like, okay, can I just take a template? So if I created a flow and I wanted to scale that up across, every project that I start from this time on, how easy is that to just replace? So I grabbed, in this example, I grabbed this. This was the original node that was there. I took the one that I had from my project, so I went over here to source and I dragged it onto it, and then I just simply connected it up. So I did go in here and grab all the fields, which all I did was I select on that and I grabbed all fields. The elements or the fields is when you create your source and you push the data from Revit into Toric, you have all those selections. And well, you can, in here, when you place your source, you have that option to exclude some of those elements. In this case, I just clicked all, but that's kind of the background behind why you have to select that information. But yeah, that's all I did. It connected to it, and then now if we jump into our app, we can see all that data. So it was pretty quick. It was easy to plug that in, and it's just like Dynamo. Sometimes you start from an existing script or graph or whatever you want to call it, and then you tweak and develop it from there. I think that's a great starting point with stuff like this. And then obviously when you create something that is usable for all projects, you'll want to scale that up and then make it easy to use on those new projects. So that was pretty easy. And to do that, to create from an existing data flow, is to just click on create data flow, and then there's a whole bunch of different templates. So and what's really cool is they have a thing called Toricverse, which I haven't dived into it, but the idea is that there's a community where you can publish these templates to share with other people, just like what you would find. I think Power BI has somewhat of a community like that, but just a place where you can find templates, or like something that I think of when I think of that is like Notion's template like place, where you can go out and just grab all these different templates that the community develops. So there's a lot of stuff out here. You can easily grab it and just go for it. I think this is really cool because, like in BIMbeats, I spent a lot of time developing dashes that I know could be used across many different firms. And I'm sure many other firms have already created it before. So by starting with something that somebody else created or you created and you shared, I think is really cool. So these are the templates you can create from it, and then you can customize them or change them however way to fit your needs. Here's another one just for a simple clash report that they have. This is with their data. So if we jump over here, into the data flow, they have this ice stadium, which is a sample project from Autodesk, and it just shows some information at a high level. Like, again, this is the information I would use as a PM or just a BIM manager on the project to quickly understand where we're at with clashes in respect to whatever the goal is. So if it's to try to be clash free at a certain date, obviously there's more logistics involved and more complexity than that, but this could give you kind of just a high level insight into where you're at as a team. So I do not actually know how to get back to the just the project page. So I end up just clicking their logo. which then takes me back sometimes to the home page. Well, actually, it looks like we're in the Toric introduction. So, anyways, now let's jump into the basic data flow. So, this will just be us creating our own, so you can actually see it in real time, just how to do this. So, we'll start off with our source. We're going to grab our architecture advanced sample model, and this is just the one that comes with Revit. We'll do always the latest version, and then down here we'll just select everything. So we could select things one at a time. You know, maybe we just need these three. In this case, we want all of them. And then maybe there's some columns we want to see in a different table. So let's create our so here we can have our source selector, which will change different sources. I'm actually not sure how that one works, but we're going to do the source version selector, so you can switch between the different versions, and then we'll bring our data into this, and so this will be all of our data. That's a ton of different information. So, and then let's visualize this. And just so that you guys can see, I'm going to delete that, and then we'll pull this up, and then you can see where that like dark blue line shows up is where the visual is going to go. And so if we pull it up there, we should have an option for model viewer. And you will not have that option if you don't. So if we jump back into here, you won't have that option if you don't export the 3D geometry. So make sure to have this checked on. And if it's checked on, it'll push that geometry up into Toric. Alright, so there's the model. We can click on that, kind of zoom in. This is very tiny. I'll close that, but you can. It's still really tiny. Obviously, when you're going to actually view the dashboard, it's going to be taking up the entire screen, and it's not going to have all this other stuff. But I did. It has been kind of difficult just trying to manage all of this in a small space. When you're developing more complex data flows, and you have like this open and then these settings, it kind of gets cluttered. But yeah, I mean, you have to manage that a little bit. So it's taking a minute to get used to it. But yeah. So there's our version. So we've got our ability to change versions. We can now view our model, and then here is a table of everything. And then what we're going to do here, and I didn't show that, or I didn't highlight that, but if I click here, what we can do is just quickly add just another node, and we can search or scroll through all of these. In this case, I just want to break out some columns from the table. We'll see if we can just find something with rooms. I'm thinking of like Navisworks, but I don't think. Yeah. So they have rooms, but I wonder what kind of data gets pushed up into it. Maybe I'm not searching it correctly. Let's see if we can find it. Element type, that makes sense. Okay, so now that we have element type, we can filter. We can say element type is, oh, that's cool. So it looks like you can connect into that. Element type is, okay, now we can drag this. Maybe add like a count. So we have 91 rooms. We have this nice little table. Yeah, so that's kind of the workflow of creating your dash. And now what we can do is, if we, well, let's rename our dash. So we'll just call this like basic data app. Now what we can do is share this app. This is, I really loved it. So the platform in general, after just a quick like overview of it, I was able to pick it up pretty quickly. So that's obviously pretty cool. It's an easy tool to get into, but also sharing information and getting it into the hands of your team members is really easy as well. That was one of the issues I had with Elastic, BIM Beats and Elastic, is that I couldn't figure out. It was very complicated getting data into the hands of users without having them sign up and create accounts. In this case, what I can do is quickly just share out with team members a dashboard. So I can just copy this link, and this is going to be the link I share with you guys. We can also embed onto a site, so we have that information as well. And then here, if we turn this on, I think this will allow it to be on the app home page where people can open it and view it. I don't know how practical that is if you have a whole bunch of information about like specific projects. I guess I just haven't seen that before, so I think that's kind of cool. And so if we turn those on, copy that, and if I click on this, okay, so this when I click on that, it does take me back to Toric introduction project. I guess I kept defaulting and clicking this. So anyways, the apps, if we click there, we should see our new, so basic data app. So this, I'm not sure, like I think this is helpful if you have a smaller team, but if you have a large firm, I think this could get messy pretty quickly. I don't know though. I'd like to see that kind of in the real world. But I think this is really cool, just how easy it is to share. So now I can just click on this and it opens, excuse me, it opens up the dashboard so that you can now view the data. And then what's cool, and I think because I'm signed in, I can go to the data flow. I don't know if you guys have that ability on your end when you click on this, but I can click on here and it'll take me back into the data flow where I can tweak and do stuff to the dash. So yeah, so there it is. That's Toric, and there's a kind of a basic introduction to the platform. So I would love to know your feedback, or if you have data that you want to dive into, or if there's things that you find really valuable in your certain specific discipline, maybe a structural related stuff that you need that would be super helpful if your entire team could see it in a dashboard type environment. let me know. I'll be glad to create whatever you guys want. So feel free to join the Discord channel to put those recommendations in, or just reach out directly. But I hope this was helpful and insightful in some way. I think Toric's a cool tool, worth checking out. But let me know if you've got anything. And I hope you guys have a great day. And I'll see you in the next video.